Hi, Muhammed. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it, man. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Russell. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really excited to speak with you today.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine for your valuable time and joining me in this call. So yeah, before we get to like today's topic, what we're going to discuss about finding your passion. So a lot of people are struggling to find their own passion. They probably choose a career and they happy with it. So before we get into that, I'd love to know more about yourself. Like, how did you choose your career and being a like entrepreneur right now?
Of course. So right now, I'm a career coach and also founder of MK Career Solutions, a company which provides
Mhm.
bespoke career services to our clients. But to take it all back to the beginning, it's a very long and complex journey. But the best place to start in a reasonable amount of time would be my university.
Right.
I studied a degree in chemistry, and I went into that degree thinking that all I wanted to do was become a scientist and perhaps discover a new therapy for a rare disease,
Yeah.
or perhaps do something that will change the world. But very, very early on in that studies, within the first 2 years, I realized that number one, the people who discover the drugs never get the credit. It's the companies that commercialize the
Yeah.
product, and more importantly, it didn't really align to me as a person. Although I loved chemistry as a subject, the jobs in there weren't very interesting. It was very
Mm,
monotonous, very repetitive, and I could see a future where a lot of jobs can be absorbed by technology and robots in the future. And I'm very much a people-focused person, so
yeah.
it wasn't for me. So I took the step, a bold step, between the second and third year of university to take a year out and move to a different part of the country and do a placement in sales, where instead of doing the chemistry, I was selling
Mm.
the equipment and the chemists use. And I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with sales. Fell in love with the people side of things. And when I came back from to university, it was a no-brainer that I wanted to go into sales itself.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
a great journey you had. So how did you actually find your passion though? Like I know like you told like from university and everything. A lot of people, it takes a years to make the shift, right? A lot of people, if they're like choosing a chemistry or if they're choosing a medical science, they end up being a doctor, or like if someone is in law, they become a lawyer. And when they're 40, 50, then they realize like I need to do something else. Probably business is my right way. Probably like being like another kind of jobs rather than what I'm actually currently doing. But you're young yourself. I think you're in late 20s, right?
yes.
Yeah, so finding something your passion is in mid 20s or mid 20s or late 20s is like incredible. So how did you actually figure out like I need to stop this and move forward with like what I'm passionate about, focusing on the people?
Great question. Great question. So what happened after university was I went into medical sales, and I started off working for a really small company
Mm,
selling medical equipment. And I was doing well, and unfortunately, within the first year and a bit, I got made redundant, as did all
yeah.
the other staff in the company. And then I went on an arduous job search, and I was fortunate enough to secure a job with a company called Smith and Nephew, which is one of the biggest medical device companies in the world. In the UK, it's the biggest,
Hmm.
and in certain fields, they are known to be the best. So I was in a fortunate position where I had a really, really high-profile job that many people would kill for
Yeah.
very early in my career. And that really set the scene for me because I was able to get to a point and a role which many people would spend many more years than me trying to get, and unfortunately weren't able to. And it was in that role itself where I realized, okay, this is everything that
Mm.
I've been working towards from a really young age. My father also had a background in medical sales, so
Right.
his network was in that as well. So my perceived vision of success was getting into the medical sales industry. But once I was in there, I was getting a very good salary. The bonuses were nice, even all the perks of medical sales, which include a really nice company car and private healthcare and all sorts of other perks, financial and otherwise. I got to a point one day where I sat down and I was like, what's next? Everything that I've been working towards for pretty much my whole life, I've reached now. So
Yeah.
what's next? And I looked at the potential career progression, which was very fluid and clear, which was, getting a better paid job, a more senior job, then maybe move into marketing, then go into management, then go into directorship. And I realized that that next ladder of success doesn't really appeal to me the same way it did so far. And that
Mm.
led to my first consideration about, I'm not really as passionate as this as I thought. What else could I do? Alongside that, for a while, I was actually coaching and supporting people in finding jobs on a very informal level. It was really friends and family
Yeah.
I started with in helping them with their CVs and giving them career advice. And it was just happened to be quite lucky in some regards, because at the same time that passion for my job was weaning, more and more people were contacting me about the career work. And even though it was initially for free, it started to become friends of friends and family of friends.
Yeah.
And there was literally one day where a client who I was working with sat down with me, and even though I intended to do the service for free, they refused to leave until they provided me with some money. And it was once that money was exchanged that thought started to appear in my mind. Wow, people would actually want to pay for this.
Yeah.
What would happen if I step more into this space? And just by stepping more into it, leaning more into that field, and one by one, I realized that initially it could be a side hustle, then it could potentially be a part-time source of income, and eventually a full-time source of income as well. But not just the fact that it was making me money, but more importantly, it was doing something that I completely loved to do, because I was
Yeah.
helping people process.
Yeah. That's a great journey you had. So let's talk about like how someone can find their own passion and like go all in for it. Like a lot of people know in a situation like finding the passion and going like a proper on it, like full time. A lot of people have like their obligations such as like a bills payment and all that. Probably their family they're responsible for. So how someone can figure out like what they're actually passionate about and then obviously make the transition. So I'd love to know from you like what would you be doing in difference, like if you're about to start like a new passion, like what would you look for?
I think that first step in the process is distinguishing between what you want to do and what you
Mm,
feel like you have to do.
right.
So many people constrain passion into a box of what they're already doing, or what they feel like their family think is good, or what their friends are doing, or what others perceive to be successful. But the first step actually has to be identifying what actually excites you. What would you love to do, whether that's a job or whether it's a hobby that you have,
Yeah.
and lean more into that space. Because really, what it comes down to is not about starting a business immediately and quitting your job or ditching everything else that you're doing. The
Mm,
first step is to do more and more of the things that excite you and the things that you're passionate about. It could be creating things, whether that's digital, physical, or a product. It could be selling things. It could be talking about a particular topic or a field. It could be reporting or documenting things that really interest you. It could even be in a space where you have the opportunity to physically discuss things that really excite you. And the first thing that you want to do is step more into that space, because as you start to step more and more into your passions and your hobbies,
yeah.
inevitably you will find someone who has managed to create a career out of doing the thing that they love, and particularly in the field that you do. And that will be a great source of inspiration for you.
Yeah. And another thing, like I like to add as well, like it would be like a great to do. Like when I was choosing my career, like I had to test different things because I did multiple different kind of businesses before I found like my marketing company, which is like this is the one I want to go for. So before that, like I was a primary school teacher for like a 6 month after like a graduation and everything, become a primary school teacher. Then opened a takeaway with my brother around the 3.5 years. Then multi-level marketing, like company called ACN. Did that for like a 3 to 6 month. Then few different affiliate program and promoting. Then freelancing, like running ads, and eventually after running like a e-commerce business as well, then I found my company, which is like RC Digital Media, which in 2017 I incorporated. So for me, like a lot of things, like I didn't know it existed until I tried and tested it. With the podcast, I didn't know podcast such a thing until like 2018, 2019. And I launched my first podcast in 2020. So right now it's like becoming my main thing, to be honest. During the day, 80% of my time goes on creating content for my podcast. So yeah, a lot of things comes along with like you try something, you hear something new, and like give it a shot on a smaller level. So a lot of people try to do is like they try to jump in a boat like really fast, and like putting all eggs in the one basket as well, like without like any safety net or like knowing what they're actually doing. Because a lot of industry you're gonna go in and a lot of a new passion you try out, you don't know you're gonna do well financially or mentally as well. because it's a new thing for you. Obviously, there is so many learning involved. So when you made your transition from like a sales job to like your coaching and consulting, did you become a proper full-time straight away, or like you take like a small step, like part-time on during the weekend or after your work hours?
It was a very strategic move, and you're completely right there. I think that's an important point you made there about number one, having the courage to start something in the first place,
Yeah.
but number two, taking it iteratively, taking it in steps. Because it wasn't just a case of one day I was like, ah, wonderful, I want to be a
Mm,
coach, I'm going to quit my job and start a business. I actually did it alongside my full-time work for about
right.
18 months before I took the time to really decide to slow down and leave my job. I was quite fortunate enough in the sense that I had a field-based job in sales,
Yeah.
and those kind of jobs are based on targets and based on performance, and that gave me a lot of flexibility. As long as I was meeting and exceeding my targets, which I was consistently doing, I had the freedom and flexibility to manage my time in the way that I saw fit. I
Mm,
also had to consume weekends, so a lot of my weekends was spent working on my business.
right.
Um, and over time, iteratively, I had to use my time effectively because I only had a limited amount of hours in the day. It was building my business alongside my job and getting it to a point where, number one, the business was making sufficient money to be sustainable. But
Yeah.
number two, more importantly, it would be impossible to grow my business without allocating more time, which was being consumed by work.
Mm.
So just before I left my job, I was literally doing 50 hours a week on
Oh,
my
wow.
business and nearly 50 hours a week on my job concurrently. It was crazy. I was doing so many hours, and I did get burnt out a few times in the process.
Yeah.
But I literally reached a point where I could not do any more. And the only way that I could grow my business was to leave. And it was a tough step because although the business was making money, it was making nowhere near the amount of money that my job was.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I had to take a decision at that point and have the courage to think, what's really important to me? Is it money right now, or is it following my passion and following my dream, and
Mm.
maybe create something that could be incredible? And I made that step, which was a difficult step at the time, giving away that security and that stability. But when I look back now, it was the best decision I made. And the only thing I think about is
Yeah.
imagine what life would be like if I quit even sooner.
Yeah, that's the same thing I did as well. Like when I was in a job working in a school, I had my business. In the evening, I'm running a takeaway business because that gives me like a salary and peace of mind as well at the same time. Then even then, when I was building my online internet business at the same time, like I had my takeaway running in the evening time. So during the daytime, I'm working on my like my dream thing, like I wanted to do forever, and working on a side thing on the evening. So yeah, and back then, even though I wasn't married that time as well, so if you're like a married and with a family, then you've been like difficult giving a time for your family, and it'll be difficult other way, like if you quit your job at the same time because you have to provide for like another two, three people if you have the children, your wife. So that makes it like hard as well. So you have to like if someone is listening, if they want to make a shift, they have to calculate their own risk, like how much saving you have, like how much knowledge you have for the such as industry. If you have like a zero knowledge of a certain industry and you're jumping in full, then obviously the risk is higher compared to an industry like for 10 years you've been working on the same kind of industry, and only you just starting instead of like you being an employee, you become an employer and making that shift. So it's so much easier because you know the business, you know the trade, you have like a few connection here and there, then that makes business easier. But starting a new industry makes them so much difficult, and you have to know like how much you can tolerate, like 3 years, 5 years, you can go without like again decent amount of income coming in. So I like to know from you another thing is, Mohammed, which is a lot of people think this is the passion they're following, but it's actually not. They're following like someone else's passion. They probably seen someone celebrity making a TikTok videos, or like they're making huge amount of money, and they're not even passionate about making them kind of videos, and they end up doing it because other people are doing it, rather than they define like a what passion for them and what God give them the kind of gift for them to be like best version of themselves. So how someone can find their own passion like that?
Mhm. Great question. It obviously requires a lot of work, but the first thing that one can do is just reflect and take stock of how they're spending their time.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is consider activities that you can do and they feel effortless. Maybe there's a topic that you can talk about where if you were told to give a presentation tomorrow, for example, you
yeah.
could easily just like this prepare 10 minutes of material and deliver it. That's a really good way. Other things are what you may consider yourself to be good at that other people might find really difficult. So, for example, with myself, I remember very, very well when I was in secondary school, when I was in year 11, the individuals who were applying to university who were 2 or 3 years older than me, they were coming to me and asking me to help them write their university personal statements for them.
Right.
At the time, I had no idea I wanted to be a CV writer or start a career coaching business.
Yeah.
What came quite effortless to me was writing, and particularly commanding the English language to persuade. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but looking now at where I am and how I started my business, which was based on CV writing, it
Yeah.
makes complete sense that I just leveraged my passion and my ease and skill for writing and took it into a business. So consider what you might find easy that other people might struggle with, or what you enjoy talking about, what you enjoy listening to. Maybe even take an audit of your Instagram or your TikTok
Yeah.
feed. And what are the most common topics or trends that you're following? It might be cooking, it might be business, sales, finance, cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
a particular product area. And think about how you can spend more time in that space. So let's say, for example, there's someone I know who's a very, very successful Amazon-based business owner. And he's in the business of selling gardening tools.
Mm.
Now, for me, I've got zero passion for
For
gardening tools,
gardening.
gardening equipment.
Yeah.
But for him, it's incredible. And I know he's making significant amounts of money. So it's not about what other people think either. It's about what really interests you, and lean more into that space. And as you lean into that space, you'll find opportunities or avenues or meet people
Right.
who really like and have commercialized their passion. And the next thing to do from that stage is reach out to them. Don't be afraid. I can tell you my story about how I developed my passion, but that might not relate in exactly the same way for an industry. So the best thing to do is find someone who's already doing what you're doing and ask them a whole bunch of questions about how they got started.
Yeah.
And naturally, if we have enough of those conversations, it will give us the confidence or a route to get started. Because very rare does a person quit one day and become an overnight success the next. There's a number of steps that they've taken. There's a pathway that's defined for them. And if you're able to see what the first stage in that pathway is, that's the first stage to getting started.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with you. And also like they need to like make a note out of it, make a list out of like what's they passionate about, probably the thing, then write down pros and cons each sector and see like does it make sense if the pros is too much favor of you or like against you, or the cons is too much favor of you against you. Then that you can evaluate like which passion to focusing on, and why your heart goes for the first one. Just give it a try without any distractions, at least 6 months minimum. Give it a try 6 months. If you're getting some kind of return on investment, either probably not with your money, but if you see like people actually buying your business products or services, then you know like this thing can be repeatable. Like if one person buys it, then obviously you can buy it to sell it to like a 10 people. So that's like another way. Like this is what I did, like when I'm jumping from like one thing another. The teaching, I was in teacher, I did a 6 month, and then I went to like a SCN company, like a multi-level marketing. I did it for 6 months. I was total focus on it. I gave my 100%, and then result wasn't that great, and I didn't feel any passion for it. Like I thought I had it at the beginning, then when I actually doing it for 3 to 6 months, I start losing their passion. And even though I was making money, but still it wasn't like a kick in. So that's the like another thing like you need to find out. Like give it at least 6 months. We try to do five passion in the same time and going nowhere, then realize I'm kind of loser. I don't have like any passion, and nothing is working out for me, because obviously in terms of like giving something meaningful or becoming something big, obviously you have to give some time. But before my agency, RC Digital Media, before you become stabilized or get to like 6, 7 figure, it took like 3 years. And first 3 years, it was really, really hard. First 1 year was really, really tough. No one actually buying or couldn't even sell anything. But I had really passionate about it. I knew my service is great and everything. So it kept me going for like 1 year. And I know how many nights I wanted to quit. So when you feel like you want to quit, then if you have like everything written down, why you started your vision plan, then when you review it, then it gives you clarity. Like, hey, thing comes like a bad days, even though like football players, they are so passionate about their football game, but if they keep on losing and they're not winning any season and something, like you can relate to like United players, it doesn't mean like they're going to quit playing football, but probably have their ups and downs and feel like quitting, but they're never going to quit because they knows like where they started and this is their passion, this is their life anyway. So yeah, it's another way. So what would be like your advice for anyone who's listening, if anyone wants to go after for like their dream, their vision, what would be like a one thing they can focus on?
I think I'd like to take inspiration from your story and what you've said. In your story, you've had multiple businesses, you've had multiple actions that you've taken. I'm pretty sure that when you first started the takeaway, for example, you had no idea that it could lead to ACN, or that ACN could lead to a podcast or a marketing agency or beyond. But the reality is, the only way you'll ever figure things out is just to get started and just to do it. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay if you don't know where it's going to lead in the long run, but I guarantee by taking action, by going through the steps, and by following the process of diving into something, it will, number one, teach you and learn more valuable skills that will help you. And number two, that process of elimination will take you closer to finding your eventual goal and your passion. I think deep down, everyone knows that there's something that they can dive into. Everyone knows that there's a goal, there's a dream, there's a passion that they would love to do that has been squashed by parents, by family, by
Yeah.
society, and beyond. Lean into that space and just give it a go, because you never ever know where it will take you. And the last thing that you want to do is get to a point where you regret never ever taking those actions in the first place.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mohammed, for your advice. I really appreciate it, man. So we're coming to the end of this podcast. So those who's listening, if anyone wants to learn more about your work, your company, or needs some consultation help from you, like what's the best place to find you?
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time, Russell. If anyone is interested in having a conversation, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. It's Muhammed Kasujee, MohammedKasujee on LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to have a conversation and connect from there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I wish you best of luck in your business and your career and your personal life as well. And I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you helped a lot in terms of like finding your passion. So those who's interested, if anyone wants to reach out to you, Mohammed, go check out on his LinkedIn profile. Also, you can visit his website as well. I'm going to leave the link on the podcast. So yeah, until then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Thank you.